Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live from Judea to the world. You're a part of it wherever you are. And shalom to a special edition that we're doing today in honor of the Senate confirmation hearing of Governor Mike Huckabee, soon to be Ambassador Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel. I think this is a particularly important event, the Senate confirmation hearing. And that is because I think that we're going to have an ambassador that really sees eye to eye with a strong Israel, with a bigger Israel, not a smaller Israel, and with Jerusalem at its capital, with Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. And so therefore, I am very excited about this Senate confirmation hearing. I think it's also important because Mike Huckabee being confirmed, he has not yet been confirmed, but he will be confirmed in the Senate, is something that impacts the United States, the U.S.-Israel relationship. But in truth, the words that you hear coming out of Mike Huckabee's mouth have a cultural influence on the rest of the world. And that's why I think this is so important, because the stuff that we're going to hear from Governor Mike Huckabee is stuff that we got to get more people around the world to hear. Everybody's got to hear these amazing words. Everybody's got to hear the way that he sees, Judea and Samaria, the way he sees Jewish rights in the land of Israel is the way that so many more people need to see it. And right now, there's so much fighting against Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. There's so much stuff right now on the internet about South Hebron Hills. And there's a lot of people who are against Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. So when you hear Mike Huckabee speaking out loud, then you're hearing like this strong, committed, historically rooted, biblically rooted, very powerful messaging that really we all need to hear, to mimic his words, and that needs to broadcast out into the world. So let's get to the videotape. But before we do that, let me bring on the co-host for today's show, which is none other than Jake Bennett. Shalom, Jake Bennett, international Israel advocate based in the United States. Shalom and welcome to the show today.
Shalom, Yishai. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. And what did you think of the stuff that I said in the beginning here, which is that the issue of the confirmation of Huckabee is not just U.S.-Israel relations, and it's not just, an ambassador to Israel. It's really a whole set of messaging that needs to get out to the world.
Absolutely. It's framing the issues. It's setting the stage and the tone for the dialogue. Before we had, in the last administration, a lot of concern about how Iran would feel about American actions. And here we have someone who says, our first concern is our allies. That's a massive shift.
It is a massive shift. Also, his positions on Judea and Samaria, on a strong Israel, on the end of the two-state solution, on who the bad guys are. My wife, Malka, she pointed out something that's so true, which is just to recognize who bad guys are and just to call them out. That's a big deal in this day and age. When you have a person like Huckabee who recognizes the truth about Israel, recognizes what Israeli strength should be and how it's actually good for this region, that needs to be broadcast even louder.
Can I chime in? Even the basic question that you hear some people ask Huckabee, do you think it's okay? Do you support the right of Jews to live in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank, as they call it, as though there's something immoral about Jews living in their biblical heartland, in their ancestral homeland, and that's their starting point. And you're going to hear it. If we hear that part of the hearing confirmation today, he gets asked this question: what happens if Israel annexes Judea and Samaria, and is that okay? Do you support that? Really what they're asking is, do you support a U.S. ally that gives human rights and civil rights to everybody, being in control of land, which a lot of people for the last 30 years have been pushing be put in control of the PLO, a terrorist organization that suppresses the rights of its own Arab residents and wants to have a complete anti-Jewish apartheid with no Jews allowed. And somehow they think they're coming from a moral stance.
That's right. Here comes Mike Huckabee on the stage of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, but in truth, it goes out into the world and it puts out a different ping. And when I'm on a show and they're going to be like, well, you do know it's occupied, you've stolen somebody else's land, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to be like, Well, the ambassador of the United States to Israel does not think so, and here's what he said on a global stage. Meaning to say, it's a much stronger moment for our position and our posture, and I think that's very important. And so people like Mike, who write, yes, annex Judea and Samaria and expel the opposers. Okay, you know what I mean? Mike now has something more to stand on than just his opinion. He's got the opinion of a major influence on American policy. Let's get to it, shall we, Jake?
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here's Mike Huckabee being questioned on the relationship of U.S. and Israel and the alliance at the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, a confirmation hearing for Mike Huckabee to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel.
Tell us, why is the defense of Israel, the support of Israel, important to America?
Senator, a great question. The truth is, it's been very clear, as expressed by the Iranian government, that Israel is the appetizer and we're the entree. They don't want to stop at Israel. They certainly want to annihilate them. They've said it over and over. And there's an old saying that when people are saying again and again they're going to kill you, you might want to take them seriously. But they've also gone beyond saying they want to annihilate Israel and wipe it off the face of the earth. They've said that their ultimate goal is to first take care of the little Satan, they identify as Israel, and then come after the great Satan. Senator, that's us. And whatever is happening to Israel, it is the canary in the coal mine. These governments, Iran being the most notable, who want to develop a nuclear weapon and who have the audacity to wish to use it to destroy a sovereign Jewish state so that they ultimately could destroy Western civilization. That's why it matters, Senator, and I appreciate your question because I hope people will understand this is not just about Israel. It is about us. And if we don't stand with them, they stand alone. And if they fall alone, we fall next.
All right, so right there you have an initial stance where Governor Mike Huckabee is pointing out that Iran wants to destroy Israel, but that has an impact because Israel's just a canary in the coal mine or the front line. They'll go after the United States. And he talked about Western civilization, or what I would call freedom-loving civilization, being under attack. And this links up with Marco Rubio's efforts to deport jihadis who are in student visas in the United States and get rid of them and get rid of folks that want to destabilize the United States. There is a civilizational battle. I think you pointed out to me in a conversation off air that what's his name, Murray, has done a great job. Douglas Murray has done a great job pointing out that there's a civilizational battle here. And I think that's what Huckabee was talking about. There's a civilizational battle. Israel's on the front line. We got to support it if we want to support ourselves, if we want to be victorious in that civilizational battle. What do you think, Jake?
Absolutely. It's just moral clarity that we're seeing here. I mean, and what a stark contrast to 10 years ago when the JCPOA came out, the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal. If that had proceeded, we'd have gone through the period right now where Iran wasn't allowed to have intercontinental ballistic missiles, where they'd be allowed now all sanctions off and they can do whatever they want and build their own bomb. And it was like a 10-year window. They're like, okay, well, let's call this a victory because it's the best we could get. That was in an age where negotiators' deal wasn't to stop the bad outcome from happening, but to come to a deal. They're like, hey, we got a deal. We've won. No, the goal was never to get a deal. The goal was to stop them from having nuclear weapons. And now we've got an administration that talks like that and has clarity on that.
Well, it has clarity on that in part, but part of it does not have so much clarity. And we'll hear from Steve Witkoff talking about Qatar.
Yeah.
What seems to me to be quite a naive lack of clarity.
Yeah, you mentioned the Columbia student that's been deported to Louisiana to go through his hearing to be deported. We've had
Mahmoud Khalil.
Yes, we've had a few individuals who have self-deported because they know that they're next. We have one young lady went back to China. We had come out in the news just in the last couple of days evidence that SJP nationally in the U.S., that's Students for Justice in Palestine, that is a a Qatari supported group that active on U.S. college campuses. They had advanced knowledge of the October 7th attacks. 3 minutes before midnight, before the attacks happened, the Columbia SJP that Khalil was responsible for posted. They reactivated their Instagram account and said, "We're back. Stay tuned. There's stuff coming." And then they had, in that same day, they had a toolkit for resistance, and which is a translation of the name of Hamas, by the way. Its name signifies resistance, quote unquote. So when students are calling for resistance, they're calling for Hamas. But they had students who used images of people on hang gliders, and they had this prepared in a toolkit before there was even images from the actual event. So they knew it was coming. They knew that they were coming by air on hang gliders. So we've got an amazing thing happening. Not just the deporting of these activists, but the current administration has already had the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights announced that they're doing a full investigation on 60 universities that have had active and very concerning SJP chapters and other chapters. They work under various names.
And how much of that funding comes from Qatar?
Over the past 10 years, there's been $6 billion of funding to American universities in total. So it's not just student clubs where there's real opaqueness as to where that funding is coming from, but entire departments, Middle East departments, professors, chairs, etc. So there's a purchasing of influence, and we see this also. We see this in D.C. There's a lot of stories and records of Qatar using its influence, and even trying to get in with strong members of strong administrations, and doing it in various ways. Even a few years ago, there was a case where they worked really hard through a guy who's a registered foreign agent for Qatar to bring representatives from major American Jewish organizations to come visit in Qatar. And again, they were purchasing influence. They were explicitly purchasing influence. It was talked about. In the press extensively that was their goal, was to purchase influence with Jewish groups to make them less strong in their words about Qatar.
Moshe Herman, my friend, writes, "Truth. I was seeing this 20 years ago, even here, with the weaponizing of professors. So professors were being bought, and we see the power of that Qatari money. Yet Steve Witkoff, who is the president's special envoy to the Middle East, seems to not understand that. Let's watch him talk a little bit about Qatar. He makes it seem like they're just guys trying to figure it out and help out. They're just these good folks trying to just trying to be recognized for being peacemakers. Let's take a look.
Qatar is a small nation, probably has the highest GDP per capita, per person, right, of anyone in the world. Huge reserves. I think they want stability. I think they want a peace treaty from the United States. Why? Because all the Middle East, all the GCC countries want that. By the way, this is an interesting point. Everybody thinks the peace treaty is about physical defense. What it's really about is the United States providing a security wrapper so that they're all financeable. Today, you can't borrow money in those countries. So if you want to go do a deal in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, JP Morgan, if they are the hypothetical bank, has to underwrite war risk. They have to underwrite, will the Houthis in Saudi Arabia fire in a hypersonic missile and destroy that AI data center that you just bought for $200 billion? That's a real problem. So a lot of these countries want defense treaties so that they're not just building out of their pocket, they're taking their oil money and they're actually leveraging it and creating a better economy long term. So I think the Qataris want stability, and they don't get enough credit for that motivation. It's a good motivation for their people.
Amen. So but they're often accused, almost universally accused in the U.S. media of being agents of Iran.
Yeah, it's
collaborators.
It's preposterous. They're a Muslim nation. In the past, they've had some views that are a little bit more radical from an Islamist standpoint than they are today, but it's moderated quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that they're an ally of the United States. There's no doubt about that. And
they have a huge air base there. I mean, US.
By the way, and they pay for every dollar of it. They don't have their hand out for a thing. there is nothing that the United States has to fund with regard to that airbase. That's pretty unusual.
It's amazing.
Right? So they fund everything. They don't ask for much. I think I had a conversation with General Kurilla, Eric Kurilla, who runs CENTCOM, an amazing man. And I said to him, what do you think of the Qataris? He says, they're special people. So the people in the know that they're good, decent people.
I got to say, I'm sorry. I'm alternating between cringing and laughing because I can't help but cringe and laugh. He talks about this airbase, the Al Udeid airbase, and says, how amazing they are that they're funding this themselves. He doesn't realize that he's talking about the payoff right there. They put an airbase southwest of Doha. Oh, right after October 7th, they said, hey, listen, we want you to make a 10-year commitment, America, to keep this here. We're going to take all these temporary structures. We're going to build them more permanent. We'll make them missile proof. And America's like, great, missile proof buildings and barracks for our great airfield, and, right there in the Middle East. What could be better? That's the payoff. That's what we talk about, compromise. That's how they compromise a country. When America has interests that might go one way and Qatar has interests that go another way, and Qatar can say, hey, we've got a place for you to put all your warplanes and you put them here. Now the American interests are compromised. Then they didn't let America use that base when they needed to do strikes in the Middle East. So I've been told. I was talking earlier today with an expert, an associate over at Middle East Forum, who was telling me, yeah, you can use those bases if you want to fight somewhere, some non-Muslim countries, but not here.
Right. Everybody knows in Gaza that the pro-Hamas television network is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is a Qatari-funded, Qatari-run, Qatari-located news network that teaches jihadism. Anti-Israelism is like the day in, day out, minute by minute, and it's anti-American as well.
Absolutely.
And you have this arm of teaching. So we know what they do on campus. We know what they do in media.
So just to expand on that, not only is Al Jazeera the propaganda mouthpiece of Hamas that has made numerous blood libel accusations of Israel targeting that hospital story when there was an explosion outside of a hospital and they said it was Israeli shelling. Well, no, it was Hamas. But not only all of that, not only the professors of American universities that have local buildings and places in Doha, who have come out. There was a story not so many days ago I saw on a professor of Northwestern just going on and on about how Hamas is in the right, Israel's in the wrong. On top of all of that, how about all the money that Qatar funded Hamas with? To say that, they're funding Hamas outright. There were $300 million sent to Hamas right before October 7th. And then you'll get some people who will take a crazy weird zigzag and say, oh, but Bibi let it through. So Bibi's as guilty as Hamas. No, there's a difference between the partners of the extortionist, Islamic extremist, terrorist, jihadist group Hamas and those being extorted. Bibi let money through. Israel let money through. But it was an extortion.
Maybe there's enough blame to go around. Okay.
There's blame to go around. Sure.
So Qatar is funding Hamas and Bibi let it through. Well, bad on both of them.
I know that you said Hamas has been unreasonable in trying to respond to another round of the next phase of a ceasefire. Where do we go from here? What are the odds you get them back to the table and get these hostages home?
Well, I certainly hope we get everybody back to the table and get the hostages home. I was in Doha. I met with many of the Arab leaders at the Arab Summit. I thought we had a deal, an acceptable deal. I even thought we had an approval from Hamas. Maybe that's just me getting duped. But I thought we were there. And evidently we weren't. So this is on Hamas. The United States stands with the state of Israel. There's just, that's a 100% commitment. And we've expressed that. Hamas had every opportunity to demilitarize, to accept the bridging proposal that would have given us a 40 or 50-day ceasefire where we could have discussed demilitarization and a final truce. There were all kinds of opportunities to do that, and they elected not to. And this becomes the alternative. And it is unfortunate. Do I think would we be amenable to a reach out from Hamas? Of course we would be. No different than in the Russian conflict. We want to end the killing. but we need to be clear who the aggressor is here, and that is Hamas.
Well, and quickly, I want to ask you before.
Okay.
Couple of things on that. Kind of make an analogy. Can you imagine World War II ends and we say, we're okay with leaving the Nazis in power as long as they demilitarize. We don't want them to keep taking over Europe. They can keep on spouting their Nazi ideology about the white race is superior, the Übermensch and the Untermensch, and that's fine. That's fine. We're okay with that. That's a demilitarized Hamas. We're okay with anti-Semitism, Nazism, jihadism. Just hand over your weapons. Why is that okay? That's not what Israel needs. That's not what Israel wants. That's not what the world needs.
And that's not what the president of the United States has articulated. Right. And the president of Israel and prime minister of Israel as well, with the destruction of Hamas and Hamas ideology. Like his whole take on Qatar, Hamas, he's just somebody wrote who wrote very clearly, this sounds weak. There's like a weakness about it. It's like okay, we got to understand them. We got to contain them. We got to feel for them. They're misunderstood. They're not quite understood. They just want peace. They just want normalization. They just want to be recognized. And the attitude is not one of, hey, these people want to destroy us. Look what they're doing. This is not commensurate with Rubio's discussion on deporting jihadists. It's not the same.
There's something missing. There's something big missing. And he admits it in his interview with Tucker, where he says, actually, I haven't talked to any Hamas people directly.
Hold on. I think I have that one.
I
think I have that one. Here's the one that you wanted me to play.
A lot of people have been killed in Gaza, a lot of kids. And that's inflaming the populations of some of these countries, again, specifically Egypt and Jordan, to such a point that those governments could fall and cause like massive chaos, including in Europe. Is that a factor? As that worry, is that a factor?
Huge factor. It's a huge factor. I think King Abdullah in Jordan has done an amazing job of figuring out how to deal with that instability. But in some respects, he's been lucky. I think Egypt is a flashpoint. All the good that happened in the Ayoun election because of Nasrallah and Sinwar being eliminated, that could all be reversed if we lose Egypt. What happened in Syria was a huge data point for the region. I mean, getting him out, Assad, was a big deal, and no one ever expected it. But Egypt has a very restive. I want to say the stats in Egypt are huge unemployment among under 25, like 45% unemployment. Yeah, a country can't exist like that. They're largely broke. They need a lot of help. If we have a bad event in Egypt, it could take us back. And Saudi Arabia also large. I mean, he's an amazing leader, MBS. But people are worried about his young population and how they're looking at this whole thing, which is why we've got to solve Gaza. Because if we solve Gaza, which is the conditioned precedent to Saudi normalizing, then Saudi can normalize. And if they normalize, we're building on the framework of the Abraham Peace Accord.
Can we say that last point just needs to be pointed out here? He's repeating a Biden State Department talking point.
He's got Biden talking points.
He's got Biden talking
points. Right? If you just do the right thing in Israel by giving away some land to the jihadis, the Saudis will make peace with Israel, and the region will be stabilized. That is such malarkey.
Yes, and it was so over and over again. There were leaks from Saudi Arabia saying that's not our position. I mean, that was coming out throughout the past year and a half. Saudi Arabia is saying that's not our position. We just can deal with Israel directly. We don't care about Gaza is not our priority. That's Biden's priority. And the Biden administration kept saying, no, we're not going to help you unless you make it your priority. That's an American leftist anti-Israel talking point. And somehow Witkoff, someone's whispering in his ear, and that's the framing that they're giving him.
Look what Xavier writes. He writes, Witkoff is an unregistered agent of Qatar. He belongs in prison for violating FARA. For sure, it's clear that he is not the kind of messaging that we think is going to solve the crisis in the Middle East. help the Gazan people. What he is proposing is that the Qataris are okay. They just need to. I don't have that video where he just says like the Qataris just want to be recognized. They just want to be recognized as peacemakers.
You know what he says also? There was a clip where he says, Tucker, you're not the same person now that you were when you were 35. Now that you're 55, you're different. I'm different. Chulani's different in Syria. He's not the guy he was when he was an ISIS affiliate. Now he's changed the name of his organization. He's not an ISIS guy. Did anyone notice the news a couple of weeks ago when 1,000 Christians got killed by Julani's forces in Syria? It was in the way back pages of American mainstream media.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear it.
Right. Okay. His way of thinking is to appease jihadism, appease Qataris, appease Hamas, and then tell us that that's what the Saudis want, when the Saudis actually want us to crush the jihad, so it doesn't come to their shores either. All right. So there's
between him and his boss is Trump is a Churchill. He wants to win. And he's got talking points from a Neville Chamberlain. He's willing to appease and find common ground and leave the bad guys in place. And that's in sum what we're looking at over and over.
Let's get back to today's Senate confirmation hearing of Governor, Ambassador, also I think Reverend Mike Huckabee, and musician Mike Huckabee. Let's watch another clip of him answering questions today at the Senate.
Israel, in many ways, is a reflection of our own heritage and history. It is the Judeo-Christian law that there is a right and that there is a wrong, upon which all of Western civilization is built, but certainly our system of government. There is no country across the globe that more mirrors our own struggle and our own level of democracy than does the State of Israel. And it's one of the reasons that it is a natural ally. The spiritual connections between your church, mine, many churches in America, Jewish congregations to the State of Israel, is because we ultimately are people of the book. We believe the Bible. And therefore, that connection is not geopolitical. It is also spiritual. And to ignore that, to deny that, would be to make it very difficult for us to ever understand how to go forward in a relationship with them.
So the reason I think that clip is important in general is because I think that Israel should be promoting itself more as a biblical country, a country where the Bible happened, a country where biblical heritage happened. I was actually touring today a Indiana state representative in Hebron and Judea, and I was telling him it's like Denmark. Denmark's got Lego, so when you show up in Denmark, they're like, "This is part of our brand, Lego." Right? You show up in Australia, they're like, "Part of our brand is kangaroo." And when you show up in Israel, that should be part of your brand. And the problem is, I think that Israel has done a great disservice to the world, is that we took our foot off the gas of biblical branding, biblical marketing, biblical teaching, biblical seeing ourselves as the Bible people of the Bible, land of the Bible, and promoting that. I always tell people, I just had a good friend, Baruch, he's in the United States, he was in Washington. I said, you got to go to see the Museum of the Bible because it's a beautifully done thing. And also we should see what we don't have in our country, which is a Museum of the Bible. So I very much, connect with this ambassador and look forward to working with him to help Israel have a more biblical appeal. And biblical consciousness. And I think he's going to be able to really work on that. That's the way he sees it. Obviously, and a lot of people point out, we don't share religions. But as I always tell, good Christian folk that want to be part of the rebirth and revival of Israel, I say, let's agree to agree. Let's agree to agree.
Amen.
Let's agree let's talk about the things that we can share.
Yeah.
And that's very important. And by the way, be careful of the boundaries. Let's respect each other's boundaries. Like don't try to missionize. We don't accept that. We don't want to be a Christian country. We don't believe in the Christian text, but we have a lot that we share. And let's push that out there, and let's push out Israel and Jerusalem as a light to the world, the way really millions of people. And by the way, there are many Muslims, not the majority, but there are many Muslims who also want to see it that way, who want to see Israel strong. I think there's more and more of those.
And if you go back to the beginning of 100 years ago, at the end of World War I, it was exactly that recognition of Jewish indigeneity and history and authenticity in the land of Israel that led the world to say, now that we're decolonizing and shutting down empires and shutting down the Ottoman Empire, we're recognizing this place as the Jewish people's ancestral homeland that they can go back to and rebuild and reestablish their sovereignty on. That was a massive act of decolonization, which is a word that kids at Columbia University and Harvard who've, never cracked open a Bible and don't know Jewish history or identity can't relate to. They think that the Arab Empire that stretched across the Middle East and North Africa, talk about colonization and imperialism and conquest, that whatever they got done between 600 and 700 of the Common Era, that's got to be fixed in stone.
Jake, yesterday I was down in the Gaza envelope. Jake, I want to tell you,
yeah,
I had a really I don't want to say it wasn't life changing because it didn't change anything for me, but it was definitely like a life event. I was down, my work had a special tour to the Gaza envelope communities. And I've done a little bit, but not a lot. And so we went down there. And one of the things that we did was that we went to Be'eri, which is one of the hardest hit Gaza communities, Gaza periphery communities. They lost 106 members of the community to brutal murder on October the 7th. So check this out. They have like 50 houses that are just sitting there like burnt out because the terrorists didn't just kill. They also decided to burn everything. And we go into one of the houses with the guy whose house it is. And he's walking on one leg and one prosthetic leg. And his name is Avida Becher. He's kind of well known. And he sits down in a chair.
He lost his son.
He lost a son and a wife.
Yeah.
In the
I've seen him interviewed on
room.
TV. Yeah, powerful.
And he's sitting down in a room in a house with like 100 people, and we're in a fully burnt out house. It's just crudded out with its all original stuff still there. He sits down on a chair, and for an hour and a half inside of a burnt house, gives us the speech of what happened. And he tells us about how they locked themselves in this bomb room and how the terrorists are shooting, they're throwing grenades in, and they're doing it all day. They're waiting to kill them. They are not being satisfied with it being locked. And finally they shoot and they hit his son in both shoulders. And his son is laying there and he's bleeding out. And then they shoot his wife with one bullet, got through the ribs, hit the lungs, and she was dead in a few minutes. And his daughter and him survived. He lost this leg. And then the pinnacle was when he says to us, my son, he starts the shallow breathing. And he just says to me, says Avida, he goes, Dad, bury me with my surfboard. And I mean, it was just like, and he was like, and he said that his son passed away right there. And then he said, I knew immediately that he was in a better place, but I was happy about that, but I just missed them. And he's tearing up and crying throughout this whole thing. He's not some tough guy.
He said something really, really powerful. And I heard him say it twice on Channel 14 and I think on Channel 12 in Israel. He said, thank God that the attack happened here first and not in Judea and Samaria.
Right.
And he says, and how can I say that? What a horrible thing to say, right? I lost my wife. I lost my son. But if it had happened there, I would have said, well, I'm Magialem. Maybe they deserve it. They chose to live there. He said, but us, We're the peaceniks. We're the ones who have been telling the Gazans, hey, let's give you more and more work permits. Come into our towns, come into our communities. And we're the believers in peace, that if only we can show them enough that we want to live in peace, that they'll live in peace. He said, so thank God they hit us, because now we know there is no getting through to these people.
Right. And that's exactly the point that I was going to make, which is that I already knew he thought this, but like you could see that he's part of this former Israeli left who is coming to grips with the fact that the way to deal with them is to push them back, not to do this Witkoff, like, you just got to understand them. They just want to be recognized. They just want to recognize us as peacemakers. Like, get out of here, man. Understand what we're dealing with. Stop being fooled. Stop being duped. Stop being duped, okay? Or stop being sold out to interests.
Can I jump on that?
Well, just let me put this up, which is Rebecca writes, ghetto mentality.
Yeah.
There really is. There's this big fight always between ghetto mentality and redemption mentality. And go ahead.
Yeah, there is. And while there's this cohort of Israeli society that is they've woken up about Hamas. They've really woken up, but they're still pushing this BS narrative when it comes to the PLO. Right. And we heard this in today's confirmation hearing for Mike Huckabee. Senator Ted Cruz talked when he was asking questions. He said, I got a report here that somehow took ages to get to me and never came out under the last administration, of what the PLO's been saying in Arabic every day since October 7th, applauding it, cheering it, funding everyone who carried it out. Their Fatah guys participated in the attack on Nir Oz, and the video came out on that day on Telegram on October 7th, and you can go and watch it on Palestinian Media Watch. And they never condemned that. They never condemned any of this, and they were talking about a unity government with Hamas from the beginning. And this is where you get to, again, the problem with that thing that Witkoff was describing of, hey, if they demilitarize, okay, look, the PLO is militarized. They're sitting on 500,000 illegal rifles on top of their security forces. Their security forces are being armed by, trained by the United States, supposedly to do counterterror, but really they're building up for the big attack. They're waiting for their October 7th, and everybody knows it. And I say everybody knows it. Those of us who listen to them know it. And
right.
And there was something that was said before by Huckabee, when they tell you they want to kill you, listen to them. That was one of the main lessons that former Prime Minister Menachem Begin used to say, is our lesson from the Holocaust is when they tell you they want to kill you, believe them. And so we still have Israelis that don't believe it when it comes to the PLO. Can I just add on that? Yeah.
Avidat Becher is waking up, and people like him are waking up. There is an awakening. And the thing is, I find that the reason there's ghetto mentality is because people don't want to face the music. They don't want to always deal with it. Yes, wishful thinking or wishful unthinking.
On the other side of the fence thinks the way that we think.
No, it's like I don't want to open up the can of worms. Maybe that's a better, like I don't want to go there. I know there's something dark and sinister there, but if I go there, I have to deal with it. I have come to the conclusion that the biggest aspect of ghetto mentality that we have to defeat is a lack of wanting to govern.
Yes.
That's what I've come to the conclusion, that the biggest sin that Israel has in its DNA is that it doesn't want to lishlot, to govern strongly. It doesn't want to be a Middle East governing country. It wants to be like a little reservation governing itself, but it does not want to be a big governing country. It doesn't want to govern the other. It doesn't want to deal with it. It's not comfortable with it. It doesn't want to look at it in the eye. It doesn't want to deal with these people. It doesn't want to look at them, and therefore it kind of turns a blind ear and blind eye to it, and it looks away. While in the meantime, this monster keeps growing within. And it's a monster in criminality, and it teaches children jihadism, et cetera, and prepares for the next October 7th, cheers October 7th, is jihadist. So, we have a problem. We have to look at it.
Yeah. Can I say there's something ironic, really ironic, that, American Jews, and I think also Israeli Jews, we love the expression never again. And we love to say we don't tolerate Nazism, right? but it's so not true.
Right.
Because we tolerate it on our campuses in America, and we tolerate it from the Palestinian Authority. I mean, yes, it's Nazism married with jihadism. The same demonization of Judaism, of Jews, of Jewish culture, of Jewish character. It's Nazism, and we tolerate it and we fund it. And I say, when I say we, I mean both America's funding the PA and Israel's funding the PA. And Israel was even funding Hamas, as we talked about earlier. So we've got a massive problem where we're lacking the moral clarity to say we're not going to fund Nazism and jihadism anymore. And if you just stopped funding it, I mean, these guys would go away.
And that's again why I think it's important to have this live stream today about Huckabee, because he is a force for moral clarity. And he says it. And here's a guy who, under oath in the Foreign Affairs Committee in Congress, he's not giving you these kind of milquetoast wavering answers. There's a clarity, there's a moral clarity. That's what you said. And I think that's very important. Let's get back to just another segment or two from Mike Huckabee in today's confirmation hearing.
Imagine under any circumstances that any right-minded person would find it acceptable to support or to even acknowledge that there was justification in any way for the massacre of innocent civilians on October the 7th. If I'm confirmed, I will be absolutely clear to carry the president's policies. They have been clear that Hamas will have no future in Gaza. It can't. This was not simply a cold-blooded murder in which people came across the borders and shot innocent people. They massacred them. And they did it in the way that was most physically painful and in the way that was most personally humiliating. And worse, they videotaped themselves doing it because they were proud of it, and they published it with pride, and they announced repeatedly that they would do it again. Hamas is not a government, it's not a standing army, it is a terrorist organization, and they acted like it, and they must be treated as such. And if confirmed, I would hope that this unfortunate, horrific war that has resulted in many, many deaths, including Americans, the taking of hostages for a longer period of time than even the hostages in 1979 were taken during the Iranian takeover, that all of that could come to an end and there could be accountability for what was done to Jewish people on October the 7th of 2023.
So here's a guy who's running to be ambassador, and he's like, yeah, I'm here to, like, maybe if I would put words in his mouth, the stuff that we said is like, I'm here to broadcast some moral clarity. I'm here to take some, make the responsible parties take responsibility. I'm here to destroy them, to punish them. And that's powerful. That's powerful stuff. As opposed to, check this out. I found the video that I wanted to play for you before. Here is the video of Steve Witkoff talking about the Qataris, what's in their sweet little hearts. Here it is.
Wait, just before you hit play.
The Qataris, they're criticized for not being well motivated. It's preposterous. They are well motivated. They're good, decent people. What they want is a mediation that's effective, that gets to a peace goal.
Right. So that's there's even a longer video where it explains that, like, they just want to be recognized as peacemakers.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to say what Mike Huckabee was saying. That's the kind of talk that will save Western civilization. Period.
Right.
Because without that, I mean, look at this country. I'm here in America. Look what's happening on look what's happening on campuses in America. I recommend everyone in the audience go find the movie October 8th. If you still have it in your neighborhood, it's doing a limited release. It's around, I think, still through this week, and it is going to show you more than what you saw in the newspaper headlines and the Instagram little clips. You're going to see on the full screen what life was like walking through those encampments and hear interviews with Jewish students on U.S. campuses and the kind of vile discrimination and hatred that they were subjected to. And you'll also see the administrators of these campuses, including Ivy League campuses, excusing it, making excuses for it. And you'd never see that towards any other group in America, for sure. If you had groups on Columbia campus or on Harvard or MIT or UPenn saying lynch the blacks, no, that they would be shut down and thrown off.
Right.
Okay, but they can say globalize the Intifada, localize bring the Intifada here, and you see students saying that over and over again and holding up signs with this red triangle target saying this is the next target. They're saying lynch this one, lynch this Jew, lynch these people, and there's no action taken. But what we've been lacking for the last year and a half is this kind of a voice, like we heard from future Ambassador Mike Huckabee. I'm looking forward to him being America's ambassador to Israel and bringing this kind of clarity every single day.
Moral clarity, total victory is possible. If you want to be a person who's part of the fight for Israel, join us at fightforisrael.org. A great way to support the many projects that we have. No, that's not the one. The many projects that we have, which is the Biblical Highway, spreading the Abrahamic faith, restoration of Israeli holy sites, getting tractors to farmers in the Holy Land, broadcasting truth and courage. It's easy, it's fun, and we are appreciative of your help. It makes a difference. From $5 to $500, it makes a difference to us, and we appreciate you. And when you donate to fightforisrael.org, you could go to sleep at night knowing that you are a fighter for Israel, which is something to be very proud of. Jake Bennett and myself served in the Israeli army, and if you find a way to be a fighter for the land of Israel, that is a great gift. That's a great gift. So please check out fightforisrael.org. Another way to do it is buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. And most importantly, please like, subscribe, and comment, and be part of our really daily broadcasting. I still have one more video of Mike Huckabee from today's Senate confirmation hearing. Let's take a listen and see if we have any thoughts on it.
Great tragedy is that it's hard to have a peaceful solution that involves a future for the Palestinians when they quench any hope of real democracy for their people. Abbas is now in the 20th year of his 4-year term. As we think about that, one has to ask, how many years does a person get for a 4-year term without an election, without some transfer of power, without empowering the people to speak for themselves? That's part of the real challenge that is faced in the Middle East. With the ongoing doctrine where compensation is given to those who murder Jews, parks and streets are named for those who do it, pensions are given to the families of those who are killed in the line of killing Jews. Senator, that's a difficult pathway to peace. I would further just mention that if, in fact, there is going to be a peaceful direction, we have to accept that something isn't working. And the two-state solution, the notion that everyone's going to live together, toast marshmallows around the campfire, singing Kumbaya, and it's going to happen in our lifetime, is not going to happen if one of the sides doesn't believe the other one has a right to exist and continues to say, from the river to the sea. And so that's why it becomes a challenge. I have every confidence that Secretary Rubio, and especially every confidence that President Trump, wants to see a genuine, long-lasting peace for everyone in the Middle East. And it will be a privilege to serve the president to try to work toward that.
There's a lot there. You know, he said a lot of things. You know, he first talked about, you know, the nature of the lack of democracy in the Arab world, and certainly under the Palestinian Authority. And then he went on to hint that, you know, giving away land to our enemies is dumb and it's never going to work out. He could have, you know, he could have said even stronger. I think he believes even stronger, but it's still a Senate confirmation hearing. And then he talked about he didn't say the word. He paid for a slave. That's right. We're talking about October 7th. If we're upset about it, the PA paid and pays for the murderers that
that perpetrated October 7th.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
and more than that, October 7th is like that was a big flash, but you've had ongoing terror attacks that have been paid for by the PA for 3 decades. And you've got over the past 2 years repeatedly in their own broadcast to their own people, the Palestinian Authority, top level people are saying 60% of these attacks are being carried out by our people, by our security forces, who they don't mention get their weapons and their training from the US government with Israeli. Okay. So when do you say enough's enough? Because you've had how many killed in these terror attacks? You're talking about a few hundred shooting attacks every year. You're talking about many thousands of stone throwing attacks, which I've seen the pictures. I know you have too of women and babies with their skulls split open from these stone throwing attacks. They're no joke. And Molotov cocktail attacks, etc. You've got a war going on, and all the Jews living in the biblical heartland are just waiting for the PA to decide that the time's right for their October 7th, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it.
That's right. And they shouldn't be not allowed to do it. And Israel should not allow them to do it. We need to say we're the ones who back to governance. We have to govern. We have to govern this land. We have to be strong here. We have to hold on to our land. We have to not allow jihadism to rule here. And we should not allow the evil of brainwashing children to rule here. And we should not allow foreign influences like the European influences
and the UN and UNRWA.
That's right.
I mean, if you want moral clarity, I keep seeing these articles, and it annoys me almost every day where I see these articles that say, oh, people have said several people at UNRWA were involved in October 7th. Several people. Every single school, every single mosque, every single hospital, every single building of UNRWA was a Hamas command and control base or a weapons depot or a missile launch site. UNRWA should be declared a terrorist organization side by side with Hamas by every civilized country in the world, period.
And that leads us also to the question of, do you recognize that evil at home? Does the United States recognize that, unlike Witkoff here, do they recognize that these guys inside of the United States, inside of that country, there's jihadis that want to undermine that country and not let this thing metastasize? Here is Rubio, Secretary of State Rubio, in a video that I've showed before, talking about getting rid of pro-Hamas, pro-jihad, anti-America, anti-Israel folks on American campus, getting rid of them, deporting them. Let's watch this video.
United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa. Okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student, and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
Amazing.
Yeah, right. That's why I played this video because you talk about moral clarity. There's some moral clarity, and this moral clarity. I when I see it being heard again, we heard different stuff from Witkoff, but this was moral clarity. I would like to see some of that moral clarity in Israel, which is nobody's got a right to live with Nazi ideology in our land. This is the Jewish state. We can't have Nazis living in the Jewish state. Hello. And we shouldn't give our land away to our enemies. Duh. So, it's obvious to me that there needs to be a wake-up call in Israel as well. And we have to use this moment, this Trump moment, this Huckabee moment, this Rubio moment, this Hegseth moment. And I don't mean to say that the United States controls what's happening here. I mean to say there is a window of consciousness, and it's time to utilize that consciousness to push back on these forces. And right now in the South Hebron Hills, there is a tremendous amount of Euro money and Euro trash folks making a lot of trouble for our decent and beautiful farmers. And I know many of them, and I support many of them. Many of our farmers,
the farmers,
Jewish farmers.
not the Euro trash. Yeah.
No, not the Euro trash. I support them getting the heck out of here. I support a Rubio policy on the Euro trash in our country. You don't have a right to be here. You're anti-Israel. Get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Jake, I want to thank you so much for being with me. If I can ask you to stick around for just another few minutes, just going to ask a simple question. When was the first time the term the Jewish state, when was the first time that was used?
In modern times, you mean? Or
did I say modern times? I said,
no.
When was the first time was it used?
I mean, in modern times, you think of Der Judenstaat from Herzl, but in ancient times, I mean, even I mean, it's biblical.
The Persian Empire,
right,
called Judea Yehud Medinta, Medinat Yehudim, Der Judenstaat. That's 2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
2,500 years ago, same piece of land. So it's called Judea. It's Jewish land. We got to hold on to it, be strong. We gotta connect with our heritage and our Bible. Amen. We gotta honor these things. We've got to show leadership. We gotta show governance. We gotta kick out jihadis, deport them, fight them, convert them, and I mean convert in all the various ways you can understand that word. You basically, when you have an enemy, the enemy should have three options: either run away, submit to our rule and be
live in peace,
or fight and die. Those are the three options.
That's it. And you could apply those to Gaza. You knock off that border fence with Egypt, with the Sinai, and say anyone who wants to run, you run. Anyone who wants to stay and fight, you stay and fight.
Jake Bennett, you have a call to get to. I want to thank you very much for joining me today on the live stream. Very important. There's a lot of important messages that we discussed today. And I think today, with the confirmation hearing of Mike Huckabee, we saw a message and a light that needs to be spread out to the world. That's why we went live today. I want to thank you very much, Jake, for being with us. I also want to thank all the folks that wrote so many comments and were with us and are doing their own form of celebration. Let's keep sending each other blessings. And thank you very much. And I'm sending you blessings from the Holy Land, the land.
I want to send a couple more as well. Let's send one right to Mike Huckabee. God bless him. And Marco Rubio. God bless him. Congressman Brian Mast in the Foreign Affairs Committee, who also has said every document here, we're going to refer to Judea and Samaria, not this term, the West Bank, that is an erasure of Jewish history and identity. Right. And to others in Congress as well, Claudia Tenney of the Judea and Samaria Caucus, who has a bill to do the same thing in American all-American documents, to recognize Judea and Samaria by its name, not this fake name that came up in 1949, West Bank, that was just meant to erase history and identity.
That's right.
And to Senator Tom Cotton, who's got the companion bill over in the Senate. Blessings to all of them and to all of your listeners, and to you, Yishai, over there. Keep doing your amazing work.
All right, Jake, God bless you. God bless all the folks. Let's keep being strong. Thank you for providing us with so much facts and understanding, Jake. And that's it. Let's wrap it up. It's almost midnight here in the land of Israel. And let's continue to also pray for the safety and strength of our soldiers. the return of our hostages, the defeat of
Amen,
our
amen.
enemies, and the blessings to all the good people around the world that want to be part of the light of Israel and the light of Jerusalem. Thank you so much for being with us. And that's it. God bless you, folks. Continued strength from the land of Israel, and may the God of Israel join you in your home with your family and in your life and guide you in good directions and good ways. God bless you, folks, wherever you are, and shalom.
Amen.